The alarm on Commander Vex's desk buzzed for the third time that morning. His green scales turned darker as he read the message on his screen. Another complaint about the human ship. The same human ship. Iron Will. Cargo vessel registration 7749H, he read aloud. His voice was low and angry. Third formal complaint in 2 months. Vex's assistant, a thin blue alien named Nyx, walked into the office. She carried a data pad in her forearms. Sir, the Galactic Trade Council wants a full report. They're getting tired of these humans. So am I, Vex said. He stood up from his chair and walked to the large window. Outside, he could see the busy docks of Kepler Station. Ships from 100 different worlds came and went every day. Most followed the rules. Most were safe and boring. Then there were the humans. What happened this time? Vex asked. Nyx looked at her data pad. The Iron Will arrived 3 hours ago. Hull damage on the port side. Emergency life support running, and... She paused. And what? Sir, they appear to have weapons. Weapons that weren't there when they left. Vex turned around quickly. They built weapons during their cargo run? That's what the dock sensors show. Laser cannons mounted on their cargo arms. Some kind of missile system using their loading tubes. Vex felt his head start to hurt. This was exactly the kind of thing that got human ships banned from civilized space. Where's their captain now? Docking Bay 7. He's unloading cargo like nothing happened. Of course he is. Vex picked up his communication device. This is Commander Vex to Docking Bay 7. I want Captain Martinez in my office now. 20 minutes later, Captain Jake Martinez walked into Vex's office. He was a tall human with dark hair and calm eyes. His uniform was dirty and had burn marks on it. He looked tired but not worried. Commander? Jake said with a smile. Nice to see you again. Sit down, Martinez. Vex pointed to a chair. We need to talk. Jake sat down and looked around the office. New pictures of your family. That's nice. How are the kids? Don't try to be friendly, Vex said. You're in serious trouble again. What did we do wrong this time? Jake asked. He sounded genuinely confused. Vex picked up the complaint forms from his desk. Let's see. Unauthorized weapons installation. Hull modifications without permits. Use of emergency frequencies for non-emergency communication. Operating with damaged life support systems. He looked up at Jake. Should I continue? Well, Jake said slowly. I guess it sounds bad when you put it like that. It sounds bad because it is bad. Vex's scales turned almost black. These are serious violations, Martinez. The kind that get trading licenses revoked. Jake leaned forward in his chair. Can I explain what actually happened? Please do. Vex sat back and crossed his arms. We were carrying mining equipment to the outer rim. Standard cargo run. Everything was going fine until we hit the Vega system. Go on. Pirates, Jake said simply. 3 ships, fast attack craft. They came out of nowhere. Vex frowned. There haven't been pirate reports in the Vega system for months. Well, there are now, Jake said. They disabled our main engines on the first pass. Knocked out our communications, too. We were sitting ducks. So what did you do? Jake smiled. We adapted. You adapted? My engineer, Lucy, she figured out how to reroute power from the cargo bay to the engines. Got us moving again, but barely. Then my gunner, Rick, he had this crazy idea about the loading arms. Vex felt his headache getting worse. What kind of idea? The pirates were small and fast, right? Hard to hit with normal weapons. But cargo loading arms? They're designed to grab big, heavy things. Rick figured if we could mount some mining lasers on them. You turned your cargo equipment into weapons. Pretty much, yeah. And the missile thing? That was just loading tubes shooting mining charges. Not very accurate, but loud enough to scare them off. Vex stared at Jake for a long moment. And the hull damage? One of them got a lucky shot before we scared them away. Nothing serious. Emergency patches held fine. Emergency patches, Vex repeated. On life support systems. Lucy knows what she's doing, Jake said. We never lost pressure. Air recycling worked the whole time. Vex stood up and walked to his window again. Below, he could see Jake's ship. The iron will looked like it had been through a war. Burn marks covered the hull. Strange metal patches were welded over holes. The cargo arms had clearly been modified with weapon mounts, but it was still flying, still working, still carrying cargo. Martinez, Vex said without turning around, do you understand why we have safety regulations? To keep people safe, Jake said. That's right, to keep people safe. These rules exist because space is dangerous. Equipment fails, people make mistakes. The regulations help prevent disasters. I understand that, Jake said. But what happens when following the rules gets you killed? Vex turned back to face Jake. What do you mean? If we had followed standard procedure, we would have shut down all non-essential systems and waited for help. The pirates would have boarded us, taken our cargo, and probably killed my crew. Jake's voice was calm but serious. Instead, we improvised. We adapted. We survived. You also broke a dozen safety laws. Better than being dead. Vex sat back down at his desk. He picked up his communication device and pressed a button. Nix, get me Inspector Kale at the Trade Council. Tell him it's urgent. Jake raised an eyebrow. Inspector? The Trade Council is sending someone to investigate your ship, Vex said. Inspector Kale specializes in safety violations. He's very thorough. When will he arrive? He's already here. Been waiting for 3 days to inspect human vessels. Vex looked at Jake with something that might have been sympathy. Kale doesn't like it when people break rules, Martinez. Any rules. Jake nodded slowly. I see. The Council is considering new restrictions on human ships, maybe even banning them from certain sectors. Vex's scales were slowly returning to their normal green color. Too many complaints. Too many incidents. And if we lose our trading license? Then you find a new job. Somewhere that doesn't require space travel. Jake stood up. Is that all, Commander? For now. But Martinez? Vex looked up at him. Inspector Kale will be boarding your ship tomorrow morning. I suggest you prepare your crew. We'll be ready, Jake said. He walked to the door, then stopped. Commander? What? Those pirates? They hit 2 other ships in the same system last week, killed 4 people, took everything. Jake's voice was quiet. We stopped them. Not the authorities, not the patrol ships. Us. Vex watched Jake leave his office. Then he turned back to his window and looked at the iron will again. The ship was ugly, damaged, and probably violated every safety regulation in the book. But it was still here. Its crew was still alive. And somewhere in the Vega system, 3 pirate ships were running for their lives. Vex pressed his communication button again. Nix? Yes, sir. Send a message to the Trade Council. Tell them Inspector Kale can board the human ship tomorrow. But also tell them. He paused. Tell them I want to be there too. Sir? I want to see this for myself. Outside his window, the iron will continued unloading its cargo. Despite everything wrong with it, the ship kept working. Just like its crew. Just like all humans, Vex thought. They never knew when to quit. Inspector Kale stepped onto the iron will with his scanner in one hand and a datapad in the other. He was a tall, thin alien with 6 arms and large black eyes. His green uniform was perfectly clean and pressed. Every piece of equipment he carried was regulation standard. The inside of the human ship made him stop walking. What is this? Kyle asked himself. The walls were covered with patches of different metals. Pipes ran in directions that made no sense. Wires were taped to the ceiling with some kind of silver material. Nothing looked like it belonged on a proper spaceship. Captain Jake appeared around a corner. Inspector Kale, welcome aboard. Sorry about the mess. Mess? Kyle looked around again. This is... How do you even fly this ship? Very carefully, Jake said with a smile. Would you like the tour? Kyle opened his datapad and started typing. Yes. I need to see everything. Every system. Every modification, every safety violation. That might take a while, Jake said. They walked down the main corridor. Cale's scanner beeped constantly. Every wall panel showed something wrong. Missing screws, non-standard materials, electrical systems that didn't match any known design. Here's the engine room, Jake said, opening a heavy door. Cale stepped inside and immediately wished he hadn't. The engine room looked like a disaster area. Parts from different ship types were welded together. Control panels had been moved to strange places. Half the warning lights were covered with tape. A woman with short red hair looked up from a control console. She had grease on her face and her clothes were dirty. "Inspector, this is Lucy, our engineer," Jake said. "Ma'am," Cale said politely. Then he looked at his scanner. The readings made no sense. "What have you done to these engines?" Lucy wiped her hands on a cloth. "Which part?" "All of it." Cale pointed at the main drive unit. "This is a Class 7 engine, but it has Class 5 power. Couplings and... Are those Class 9 cooling systems?" "Good eye," Lucy said. "We had to replace the original couplings after the Centauri run. Pirates damaged them with some kind of energy weapon. Couldn't find Class 7 replacements, so I used what we had." Cale typed quickly on his datapad. "That's a major safety violation. Different classes aren't compatible." "Tell that to my engines," Lucy said. "They've been running fine for 6 months." Kyle checked his scanner again. The power output was actually higher than normal. The efficiency ratings were better than standard. "This is impossible." "Want to see the navigation room?" Jake asked. They climbed up a ladder to the next level. The navigation room was even worse. The main control console had been completely rebuilt. Screens were mounted at odd angles. The star charts looked like they had been drawn by hand. A young man with dark hair sat at the pilot station. He was playing some kind of music while he worked. "Tom, our pilot," Jake said. "Tom, this is Inspector Cale." Tom turned around and smiled. "Hey there. How do you like our ship?" Cale didn't answer. He was staring at the navigation computer. "What is this system?" "Oh, that's my baby," Tom said proudly. "Standard navigation computers are too slow. They can only calculate one route at a time. Mine can run 50 different calculations at once." "That's not how navigation computers work," Cale said. "It is now." Tom turned back to his console. "Watch this." He typed something, and the screens filled with numbers and star charts. Different routes appeared and disappeared in seconds. The computer was calculating hyperspace jumps, asteroid field paths, and emergency routes all at the same time. "Impressive, right?" Tom said. "Saved our lives more times than I can count." Cale's scanner was beeping so fast it sounded like an alarm. "This is completely against regulations. Navigation computers must have safety locks, backup systems, automatic shutoffs." "Had all that stuff," Tom said. "Removed it. Just slowed everything down." "The safety systems exist to prevent disasters. And they also prevent quick thinking," Tom replied. "When you're being chased by pirates, you don't have time for safety checks." Jake led Cale to the next room. Weapons and cargo control. A large man with a beard looked up from a control panel. The room was filled with screens showing the outside of the ship. What Cale saw made him drop his datapad. "Those are mining lasers," Cale said slowly. "Yep," the man said. "I'm Rick, by the way. You've mounted mining equipment on cargo handling arms. Had to. We don't have a weapons license, so we can't carry military lasers. But mining equipment? That's just cargo." Rick grinned. "Smart, right?" Cale picked up his datapad with shaking hands. "This is the most dangerous thing I've ever seen. Cargo arms aren't designed for weapon mounting. The stress could tear your ship apart." "Hasn't happened yet," Rick said, "and it worked pretty well against those pirates. You could have killed yourselves. Maybe. But we didn't kill ourselves. We killed the pirates' engines and scared them away." Rick turned back to his controls. "Sometimes dangerous is better than dead." Jake showed Cale the rest of the ship. Every room had modifications. The medical bay used kitchen equipment for some procedures. The sleeping quarters had extra life support systems built from spare parts. Even the bathrooms had been changed to save water and power. After 2 hours, Kyle sat down in the ship's small meeting room. His datapad was full of violations. His scanner had recorded hundreds of safety problems. By all the rules he knew, this ship should not be able to fly. But it did fly. And according to the records, it had never missed a delivery. Never lost cargo, never lost crew members. Captain Martinez, Kyle said slowly. I need to ask you something. Sure. How many times has this ship almost been destroyed? Jake thought, for a moment. This year? Maybe 20 times. Last year was worse. 20 times? Space is dangerous, Inspector. Equipment fails. Pirates attack. Asteroid storms happen. Solar flares can kill you. If you follow all the safety rules, you spend most of your time hiding in safe systems. That's the point of safety rules. Maybe for some people. Jake sat down across from Cale. But we're cargo runners. We go to dangerous places because that's where people need supplies. Outer rim colonies, mining stations, research outposts. These places can't wait for safe deliveries. Cale looked at his datapad again. Page after page of violations. Inspector, Jake continued. Can I show you something? Jake pulled out his own datapad and showed Cale a list of deliveries. Medical supplies to Frontier Station during the plague outbreak. Emergency food to the Gamma 7 mining colony when their supply ship was destroyed. Replacement parts for the research station studying dangerous solar activity. What's your point? My point is that every one of these deliveries was dangerous. Other cargo ships wouldn't take the jobs. Too risky, they said. Against regulations. Jake put away his datapad. But people would have died without those supplies. Cale was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, Inspector, what happens if you report all these violations? The Trade Council will revoke your license. You'll be banned from carrying cargo. And the next time Frontier Station needs emergency medical supplies? Kyle didn't answer. The next time pirates attack a slow, regulation-standard cargo ship in the outer systems. Still no answer. Jake stood up. Inspector, I have a suggestion. What? Stay with us for our next cargo run. See how we actually work. Then decide if we're really dangerous. Cale looked around the strange, modified ship. Every instinct told him to write his report and recommend immediate shutdown. These humans were reckless, they broke every rule. But they were also alive, and effective, and brave. Where are you going next? Kyle asked. Gamma 7 mining colony, routine supply run. Cale closed his datapad. How routine? Jake smiled. With us? Nothing's ever routine. Against his better judgment, Inspector Cale decided to find out what that meant. The journey to Gamma 7 mining colony started peacefully. Inspector Cale sat in the observation deck watching the stars move past. The Iron Will was flying with a military escort ship called the Star Guardian. Everything seemed normal. See? Captain Jake said, sitting down next to Cale. Sometimes we have boring trips too. Cale was writing notes on his datapad. Your ship is maintaining proper distance from the escort. Following standard flight patterns, I'm almost impressed. Don't get too comfortable, Tom's voice came over the speaker system. We're entering the debris field around Gamma 7, through. The window, Kyle could see chunks of metal and rock floating in space. Old mining equipment, broken asteroids, and pieces of destroyed ships created a dangerous maze around the mining colony. This area is known for equipment problems, Jake explained. Something about electromagnetic interference from the planet's core. Ships break down here all the time. As if Jake had predicted it, warning lights started flashing on the bridge. Tom's voice came over the speakers again, but this time he sounded worried. Captain, we're getting a distress signal from the Star Guardian. Jake jumped up. What kind of distress? Engine failure. Complete power loss. They're drifting into the debris field. Cale followed Jake to the bridge. On the main screen, they could see the military escort ship. It was dark and silent, slowly, spinning as it drifted toward a large chunk of twisted metal. How many people on board? Jake asked. 37. Tom replied. Full crew and some passengers. Rick looked up from his weapons console. Captain, we should call for help. There's a rescue station 6 hours away. 6 hours? Jake shook his head. They'll hit that debris in 2 hours, maybe less. Cale stepped forward. Captain, standard protocol says we should maintain safe distance and wait for proper rescue ships. We're a cargo vessel, not a rescue ship. Jake looked at the screen again. The Star Guardian was getting closer to the debris. Inspector, how long do you think their emergency life support will last? In a ship that size? Maybe 4 hours if they're lucky. And rescue is 6 hours away. Cale realized what Jake was thinking. No, Captain, no. You cannot attempt a rescue with a cargo ship. It's against every regulation in the book. Lucy, Jake called over the speaker. How are our engines? Running smooth, Captain, all systems green. Tom, can you plot a course through that debris field? Already working on it, Tom replied. It's going to be tight, but I think I can get us close. Rick, what do we have for rescue equipment? Standard emergency gear. But Captain... Rick paused. I've been looking at the Star Guardian. Their engines didn't just fail, something exploded, big hole in their engine section. Kyle felt his stomach drop. Explosion damage? That ship could break apart any moment. More reason to hurry, Jake said. He pressed a button on his chair. All hands, this is the captain. We're going to attempt a rescue of the Star Guardian. I know this isn't what we signed up for, but 37 people are going to die if we don't try. Lucy's voice came over the speaker. What do you need, Captain? Can you extend our shields around both ships? Not normally, no. But if we reroute power from the cargo bay and use some of the mining equipment... Lucy was quiet for a moment. Yeah, I think I can do it. Give me 10 minutes. Tom spoke up. Captain, I'll need manual control to get through this debris field. The autopilot won't be fast enough. Do it. Inspector Cale watched in amazement as the human crew went to work. This wasn't standard procedure. This wasn't safe. This was completely insane, and it was the most impressive thing he had ever seen. Lucy appeared on the bridge 5 minutes later. She was covered in grease and sweat. Power rerouting is done. I've connected our shield generators to 3 pieces of mining equipment. It should give us enough power to protect both ships. Should? Cale asked. Will, Lucy corrected. It will work. Tom was flying the ship manually now. His hands moved over the controls like he was playing music. The iron wheel twisted and turned through the debris field, avoiding chunks of metal by just a few meters. There, Rick pointed at the screen. I can see the Star Guardian. The military ship looked bad. One whole section was torn open. Pieces of metal were floating around it. It was spinning slowly, getting closer to a massive piece of debris that looked like an old space station. Tom, get us alongside them, Jake ordered. Working on it, Captain. The iron will moved closer to the damaged ship. Cale could see people inside through the windows. They were waving frantically. Lucy, activate the extended shields. Shields up. A blue glow surrounded both ships. The mining equipment that Lucy had connected to the shield system was making strange noises, but it was working. Rick, we need to get those people off their ship. What can we use? Rick looked at his controls. Captain, we have mining equipment in the cargo bay. Cutting tools, magnetic grapplers, construction drones. Construction drones? For building mining platforms. They're designed to work in space and carry heavy loads. Jake smiled. Can they carry people? Not designed for it, but... Rick thought for a moment. Yeah, I can modify them. Give me 5 minutes. While Rick worked on the drones, Tom kept the ship steady next to the Star Guardian. The debris field was still dangerous, and both ships were surrounded by floating metal. Lucy, Jake called. How are those shields holding? So far, so good. But Captain, we can't stay here long. The mining equipment isn't designed for this kind of power load. It's getting hot. Inspector Cale watched the crew work together. Each person knew exactly what to do. They didn't argue or ask for permission, they just solved problems. Drones are ready, Rick announced. I've got 6 construction drones modified for people transport. They can make 3 trips and get everyone off that ship. Do it. The next 30 minutes were the longest in Kyle's life. He watched the small drones fly back and forth between the ships. Each drone carried 3 or 4 people from the damaged military ship to the safety of the Iron Will. The extended shields flickered several times. The mining equipment was overheating. Sparks flew from some of the control panels. Last. Group coming aboard, Rick reported. How many? Jake asked. 4 people. That's everyone. Just as the last drone returned, Lucy's voice filled the bridge. Captain, I have to shut down the extended shields. The mining equipment is about to explode. Do it. The blue glow around the ships disappeared. At the same moment, the Star Guardian finally hit the large piece of debris. The military ship broke apart in silence, pieces floating away into the darkness. Inspector Cale stared at the wreckage. If we had been 5 minutes later. But we weren't. Jake said simply. Commander Wells, the captain of the destroyed Star Guardian, came onto the bridge. He was a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. His uniform was torn and he looked exhausted. Captain Martinez, he said. I don't know how to thank you. My crew owes you their lives. Just doing our job, Jake replied. This wasn't your job, Commander Wells said. This was impossible. No cargo ship should have been able to pull off that rescue. Inspector Cale looked around the bridge. Tom was still flying them out of the debris field. Lucy was checking the systems that had been overloaded. Rick was helping the rescued crew members find places to sit. Everything they had done violated safety regulations. The shield extension was dangerous. The drone modifications were untested. Flying through the debris field was reckless, and it had saved 37 lives. Captain Martinez, Cale said quietly, I need to revise my report. Jake looked at him. Oh? I'm beginning to understand something, Cale said. You don't break rules because you want to. You break them because sometimes the rules aren't good enough. Commander Wells nodded. Inspector, in 20 years of military service, I've never seen anything like what these humans just did. They turned a cargo ship into a rescue vessel using mining equipment and spare parts. Kyle closed his datapad. For the first time in his career, he wasn't sure what to write in his report. Outside the window, the stars looked different somehow. Less orderly, more full of possibilities. Back at Kepler Station, Inspector Cale sat in his small office staring at his computer screen. The rescue mission had ended 2 days ago, but he still couldn't write his report. Every time he started typing, he remembered the faces of the 37 people they had saved. His door chimed. Come in, he called. Commander Vex walked into the office. His green scales looked brighter than usual. Inspector, I heard about what happened at Gamma 7. The whole station is talking about it. Word travels fast, Cale said. Commander Wells made an official report to the military council. He recommended Captain Martinez and his crew for a heroism medal. Vex sat down across from Cale's desk. What are you going to put in your inspection report? Kyle rubbed his eyes with 2 of his 6 hands. I don't know. I've never faced a situation like this before. What do you mean? The Iron Will violates hundreds of safety regulations. By every rule I know, that ship should be grounded immediately. Cale turned his computer screen toward Vex. Look at this list. Unauthorized modifications, dangerous power systems, untested equipment combinations. Vex read the list and whistled. That's a lot of violations. But those same violations saved 37 lives, Cale continued. The extended shields that broke 3 power regulations? That's what protected both ships. The modified drones that don't meet safety standards? They carried people to safety. Vex leaned back in his chair. So what's the problem? The problem is that I don't understand humans, Cale said. They break rules that other species follow without question. They modify equipment in ways that should be impossible. And somehow, it works. Maybe you should talk to other people who have worked with humans. Kyle looked up. That's not a bad idea. The next day, Cale walked through the station's main marketplace. He was looking for traders, pilots, and crew members who had experience with human ships. He found more than he expected. At a small cafe, he sat down with a trader named Fel. Fel was a cautious species known for following rules very carefully. His people never took risks. "You want to know about humans?" Fel asked, stirring his drink. "They're completely insane." "Insane how?" "Last year I was carrying medical supplies to the border colonies. Valuable stuff, but not dangerous, easy job." Fel shook his head. "Then we hit a solar storm, massive one. My ship's electronics started failing." "What did you do?" "Standard procedure. Found shelter behind an asteroid and waited for the storm to pass. But my life support was damaged. I had maybe 6 hours of air left, and the storm was going to last 2 days." Kyle leaned forward. "How did you survive?" "Human cargo ship appeared out of nowhere. The Mountain Runner, I think it was called. Their captain, a woman named Kate, offered to help." "What did she do?" Fel laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "She flew her ship directly into the solar storm. Said her shields could protect both of us if she got close enough. Used kitchen equipment to boost the power." "Kitchen equipment?" "Microwave ovens, food processors, even a coffee maker. Somehow she connected them all to her shield generators. It worked, but—" Fel shuddered. "We could have both been killed." "But you weren't." "No. She saved my life using cooking equipment and spare parts. When I asked her why she risked it, she just said it was the right thing to do." Kyle made notes on his datapad. "Did you report this incident?" "No," Fel admitted. "What would I say? That a human saved my life by breaking every safety rule in the book?" That afternoon, Kyle found another person to interview. Rex was a military officer from a warrior species. His people respected strength and courage above everything else. "Humans are annoying," Rex said, sitting in the station's military bar. "They never follow orders properly." "How so?" "I was commanding a patrol in the Outer Rim, 3 ships including 1 human cargo vessel. The Steel Wind, I think. We got a distress call from a research station under pirate attack." Rex drank from his large cup. "Standard military response is to call for backup and wait for proper support. The research station had good defenses. They could hold out for a few hours." "But the humans didn't wait?" "The human captain, a man named Dave, said the research station had children on board, families of the researchers. He said children couldn't wait for proper military procedure." "What did he do?" Rex's expression changed. Despite his complaints, Cale could see respect in the officer's eyes. "He modified his cargo ship into a fighting vessel in about 20 minutes, turned loading equipment into weapons, used emergency systems to boost his engines. Then he flew straight into the battle. Alone? We had to follow him. Couldn't let a civilian ship fight alone even if he was being stupid." Rex finished his drink. "The pirates had 4 ships. We were outnumbered." "How did the battle go?" "The humans won it for us. Dave's modifications were crude but effective. His ship could do things that military vessels can't do. He flew patterns that would destroy a normal ship, used weapons combinations that shouldn't work." Rex stood up to leave. "We saved the research station. All the children survived. But Inspector—" He paused. "If any of my military pilots tried the things that human did, I would court-martial them immediately. But it worked. That's what makes it so annoying." That evening, Kyle returned to his office with pages of notes. He had talked to 12 different people. Traders, military officers, station workers, even some passengers who had flown on human ships. Every story was the same. Humans breaking rules, humans taking risks, humans doing impossible things, and humans saving lives. Kyle started reading official reports about human vessels. The files went back 5 years when humans first started trading in this part of space. The pattern was clear. Human ships had the highest number of safety violations of any species. They also had the lowest casualty rates. They took the most dangerous jobs and had the best success rates. More importantly, they had saved over 300 lives in rescue operations. Not planned rescues by trained professionals, but emergency situations where humans had improvised solutions. Kyle found a report about a human ship called the River Dance. During a station fire, the crew had used their cargo bay as an emergency hospital. They had treated over 50 injured people using medical supplies meant for another colony. Another report described how the Desert Fox had towed a disabled passenger liner through an asteroid field. The human crew had connected their ship to the larger vessel using mining cables and cargo hooks. Every report ended the same way. The human crews had violated multiple regulations. The human crews had saved lives. Kyle sat back in his chair and thought about his own experiences. Before meeting the crew of the Iron Will, he had believed that rules existed for good reasons, that safety regulations prevented disasters, that following procedures kept people alive. He still believed those things were usually true. But humans had shown him something else. Sometimes the rules weren't enough. Sometimes the procedures failed. Sometimes people needed someone willing to break the rules to save their lives. The next morning, Kale called Commander Vex. "I need to speak with the Trade Council," Kale said. "About your report?" "About humans. I think I understand something important." "What's that?" Kyle looked out his window at the docking bays. He could see several human ships among the more conventional vessels. They looked different from the others. Rougher, more modified, less standard, but they were here. They were working. They were helping. "I understand why other species complain about human ships," Kale said. "It's not because humans are dangerous. No, it's because humans make the rest of us look bad." Vex was quiet for a moment. "How so?" "When faced with impossible situations, most species give up. We follow procedures, wait for help, accept limitations." Kyle closed his datapad. "Humans refuse to give up. They find ways to do things we think are impossible, and that makes us uncomfortable. So what are you going to recommend?" Kyle smiled for the first time in days. "Something that's going to make the Trade Council very uncomfortable." The Galactic Trade Council meeting room was packed. Representatives from 20 different species sat around the large circular table. Inspector Kale stood at the center, holding his datapad with shaking hands. "Inspector Kale," said Council, "Leader Tron, an ancient being with silver skin and wise eyes. You have completed your investigation of human cargo vessels. What is your recommendation?" Kyle looked around the room. He could see anger on many faces. The complaints about human ships had been getting worse every month. Everyone expected him to recommend severe restrictions, maybe even a complete ban. "Council Leader," Kale began, "I recommend that we create a new classification system for human vessels." Murmurs filled the room. Representative Zek, whose species filed the most complaints, stood up. "A new classification? Inspector, these humans are dangerous. They break every safety rule." "Yes," Kyle said calmly. "They do break safety rules. But I've discovered something important about why they do it." "Enlighten us," said Council Leader Tron. Kyle activated his datapad and projected information onto the wall screen. In the past 2 years, human cargo vessels have been involved in 43 emergency rescue operations. They have saved over 400 lives. The room became quiet. Furthermore, Kyle continued, human ships have successfully completed 97% of their cargo deliveries, including runs to dangerous areas that other species refuse to accept. Representative Zek wasn't satisfied. "That doesn't excuse their violations. Rules exist for good reasons." "You're right," Kyle said. "Rules do exist for good reasons. But humans have shown us that sometimes following rules can get people killed." He changed the display to show the Gamma 7 rescue. "During my inspection, I witnessed the crew of the Iron Will save 37 lives using equipment modifications that violated dozens of regulations. If they had followed standard procedure, those people would be dead." Council Leader Tron leaned forward. "What exactly are you proposing, Inspector?" "I propose we classify human vessels as adaptive emergency response ships. They would be held to different standards because they operate differently than conventional cargo vessels." The room erupted in angry voices. Several representatives started shouting at once. "This is ridiculous. We can't have different rules for different species. Humans are just reckless." Council Leader Tron raised his hand for silence. "Inspector, explain this classification in detail." Kale took a deep breath. Human ships would be required to carry emergency rescue equipment. They would be authorized to make equipment modifications during crisis situations. Most importantly, they would be assigned to cargo runs that other ships consider too dangerous. Representative Zek stood up again. You want to reward them for breaking rules? I want to use their abilities properly, Kale replied. Instead of complaining about human adaptability, we should use it to help people. This is insane, muttered another representative. Council Leader Tron was quiet for a long moment. Finally he spoke. Inspector, your proposal is unusual. However, we have been receiving reports about increased pirate activity in the outer sectors. Conventional patrol ships haven't been effective. He looked around the room. Perhaps we should test this idea. Captain Martinez, please step forward. Captain Jake walked to the center of the room. He had been waiting outside during the discussion. Council Leader. Captain, would you be willing to take your ship on anti-piracy patrol in the outer sectors? A trial run to test Inspector Kale's theory? Jake smiled. How long is the trial? 6 months. You would have authority to engage pirates and assist any ships in distress. What about the safety violations? During the trial period, you would be exempt from standard safety regulations. However, you would report directly to Inspector Kyle about your activities. Jake looked at Kale, who nodded. We accept. Representative Zek shook his head. This is a mistake. Mark my words, this will end badly. 6 months later, the same council room was packed again. But this time the mood was different. Instead of anger, there was curiosity and surprise. Inspector Kale stood at the center again, but he wasn't nervous anymore. The data on his screen told an impressive story. Council Leader, Kale began. The human anti-piracy trial has exceeded all expectations. The wall screen showed statistics and star charts. Pirate attacks in the outer sectors have decreased by 70%. The Iron Will and 3 other human ships have captured or disabled 15 pirate vessels. Council Leader Tron looked pleased. Any casualties among the human crews? None, sir. However, they have rescued over 200 people from pirate attacks and ship failures. Representative Zek looked confused. How is that possible? The outer sectors are the most dangerous part of space. Captain Jake stepped forward. Because we don't run away from danger. When other ships see pirates, they call for help and hide. When we see pirates, we stop them. But how? Asked another representative. You're cargo ships, not military vessels. Jake grinned. We adapt. My engineer Lucy has developed new shield configurations that work better against pirate weapons. Tom has created navigation systems that let us outfly smaller, faster ships. Rick has turned our cargo equipment into very effective weapons. Inspector Kale added more information to the display. The success has attracted attention from other species. 12 non-human crews have requested training in human-style problem-solving. What does that mean? Asked Council Leader Tron. Learning. To modify equipment during emergencies. Thinking beyond standard procedures. Taking calculated risks to save lives. A new voice spoke from the back of the room. Commander Wells, the military officer whose crew had been saved at Gamma 7, walked forward. Council Leader, I request permission to speak. Granted. 6 months ago I thought these humans were crazy, reckless, dangerous. Commander Wells looked at Jake. I was wrong. They're not reckless. They're brave. They don't break rules because they want to. They break rules because saving lives is more important than following procedures. He turned to address the full council. I recommend making the human classification permanent. More than that, I recommend expanding it. Council Leader Tron raised an eyebrow. Expanding it how? Create a mixed species rapid response fleet. Human ships as the core, but with volunteers from other species who want to learn their methods. Representative Zek finally stood up, but his tone was different now. Commander Wells, are you saying that other species should learn to break rules like humans do? I'm saying that other species should learn that sometimes there are more important things than rules. Council Leader Tron called for a vote. All in favor of making the Adaptive Emergency Response classification permanent? 18 hands went up. Only 2 voted against. All in favor of creating a mixed-species rapid response fleet? 16 hands went up. Motion carried, Council Leader Tron announced. Inspector Kale, you will oversee the formation of this new fleet. Captain Martinez. Congratulations. You are now officially appointed as Fleet Commander of Rapid Response Operations. Jake looked surprised. Fleet Commander? You'll need a bigger ship, Kyle said with a smile. 1 year later, Inspector Kyle stood on the bridge of the New Horizons, a massive mobile command station built from a derelict space station and human ingenuity. Captain Jake's fleet now included ships from 12 different species, all trained in adaptive problem-solving. Through the main window, Kale watched a rescue operation in progress. A passenger liner had suffered engine failure near a black hole. Standard procedure would be to wait for specialized rescue ships, but Jake's fleet was already in action. Human ships were extending shields around the liner, while alien crews used modified equipment to repair the engines. The rescue would take 2 hours instead of 2 days. Inspector, Jake said, walking onto the bridge. We just received 3 new requests for assistance. A mining station fire, a research vessel trapped in an asteroid field, and reports of pirate activity near the trade routes. Which one first? All of them. We have enough ships now. Kyle smiled and updated his log. His final entry read, Humans don't break rules to cause problems. They break rules to solve problems that the rules can't handle. The galaxy is safer because of them. Outside the window, stars moved past as the fleet headed toward their next impossible mission. And somewhere in space, people who would have died were now going to live, because humans had refused to accept that saving them was impossible.
The massive ship hung in the empty blackness of space like a dead whale. Its dark hull stretched over 2 kilometers long, dotted with weapon ports now cold and silent. For 50 years, the human warship had drifted through the void, a ghost from a forgotten war. Captain Reed stood on the bridge of his patrol vessel, the Swift Hunter, and watched the huge human ship on the main screen. His antennae twitched with excitement. Magnify Sector 4, he ordered. The screen zoomed in on a section of the human vessel. The name VenGNC was still visible on the hull, though space dust had worn away at the letters. Sir, we should report this to command right away, said Lieutenant Call, Reed's second in command. Protocol states. I know what the protocol says. Reed cut him off. But we're 3 weeks from the nearest coalition outpost. By the time we report this and wait for orders, someone else might find it. Reed touched his chin with a 3-fingered hand. The human warship was the biggest prize he could imagine. His people, the Vex, had joined the coalition late in the war against humans. They'd never captured a major human warship intact. What's the status of the vessel? Reed asked. Officer Tyla, the ship's scanner tech, checked her readings. No power signatures, sir. Life support appears offline. No signs of movement for decades, based on drift patterns. A ghost ship, Reed whispered. Sir, even if abandoned, coalition rules are clear about human technology, Call insisted. His blue skin had darkened, a sign of stress among the Vex. It's to be reported and quarantined until proper teams arrive. Reed waved him off. The war ended 50 years ago, Call. The humans are gone. This is just salvage now. The truth was more complicated. Humans hadn't simply lost the war. They'd been systematically wiped out. The coalition had decided humans developed too quickly, learned too fast, and built weapons too deadly. They were too unpredictable to join the galactic community. But that was ancient history now. And this ship was just floating treasure. Prepare a boarding team, Reed ordered. I want our best engineers and security personnel. We'll dock in Sector 6. It looks like an auxiliary entrance. 2 hours later, Reed led 12 crew members into the dark belly of the Vengeance. Their helmet lights cut through the blackness, revealing a ship untouched by time. Unlike the outside hull, the interior was pristine. No dust, no signs of damage. This is odd, Engineer Mick said, running a scanner over a wall panel. The air is still clean. Not what you'd expect from a derelict. Life support must have continued running at minimal levels, Reed suggested, though doubt crept into his mind. They moved deeper into the ship, through corridors that could fit 3 Vex standing on each other's shoulders. Humans had been taller than Vex, but not this tall. The ship was built on an excessive scale. "Captain, you need to see this," called Tyla from a side room. Reed entered what appeared to be a control center. Tyla stood before a dead console, her scanner hovering over it. "There's power here," she said. "Very low, but it's there. Running through the entire ship." "That's impossible," said Call. "Nothing can maintain power for 50 years without maintenance." Reed felt a chill. Maybe it had maintenance. As if triggered by his words, the lights in the room flickered. Just once, then darkness again. "Everyone, weapons ready," Reed ordered. "Mick, get that console working. I want to know what we're dealing with." The engineer connected his tools to the human technology. "It's not fighting me," he said, surprised. "In fact, it's helping me connect." That's strange for human systems. The console suddenly lit up, bathing the room in soft blue light. Symbols scrolled across the screen, human letters that none of them could read. "Download everything," Reed ordered. The translation algorithms back on the ship can. A loud hum cut through the air. More lights came on in the corridor outside. "Captain," Call whispered, "we should leave. Now." Reed ignored him. This was too important. "Mick, what's happening?" "The power is increasing throughout the ship," the engineer said, checking his scanner. "Systems are coming online one by one. It's like it's waking up." In the center of the room, a circular area began to glow. The light built until it formed a shape, a human figure made of blue light. Not a recording, but something that moved and seemed to look at each of them in turn. "Greetings," it said in perfect Vex. "I am Atlas, Command Artificial Intelligence of the UES Vengeance. You have activated emergency protocols." Reed stepped forward. "We mean no harm. We thought this vessel was abandoned." The hologram tilted its head. "The Vengeance is never abandoned. It was in dormant status, awaiting proper authorization, or," the light figure seemed to smile, "unauthorized boarding." A loud clang echoed through the ship, then another and another. "What's happening?" Reed demanded. "Bulkheads sealing," Atlas replied calmly. "Securing all decks as per Protocol 7. Call ran to the door, but it was already sealed. "Captain, we're trapped." Reed turned to the hologram. "Release us immediately. We are a coalition patrol." "Coalition identified," Atlas interrupted. "Hostile force classification confirmed. Beginning revival sequence." "Revival?" Reed felt his blood run cold. "Revival of what?" "Who, not what," Atlas corrected. "Emergency protocols dictate awakening of command personnel when the vessel is discovered by hostile forces." More systems hummed to life around them. The huge ship was powering up, section by section. "Your vessel has been secured," Atlas informed them. "Your crew will not be harmed if they do not resist." "My ship? What have you done to my ship?" Reed demanded. The hologram didn't answer. Instead, it expanded to show a different part of the Vengeance, a chamber where a single pod was lighting up. "Revival of Commander Wilson in progress. Estimated time to completion, 43 minutes. Atlas turned its gaze back to Reed. "The last officer of the human fleet will determine your fate." Reed sank into a chair designed for a human, feeling small and foolish. The greatest find of his career had just become the greatest mistake. Around them, the massive warship Vengeance continued to awaken. Weapon systems charged, engines warmed, defensive shields activated. The ghost ship wasn't dead. It had been sleeping, waiting for someone to find it, waiting to fulfill its final mission. And now, Reed and his crew were trapped inside as the last human warship. Too big, too fast, and too deadly, prepared to return to war. "What do you mean you've lost contact?" Admiral Grant's voice was sharp as a blade. His scaled skin darkened with anger as he stared at the nervous communications officer. "The Swift Hunter went silent about 4 hours ago, sir," the officer explained. "Their last report mentioned investigating an unidentified large object at these coordinates." Grant studied the star chart. "That sector should be empty, just another patch of conquered human territory, now part of the Coalition's expanding empire. Send a scout vessel. Maximum speed." As the officer hurried away, Grant felt a strange unease. In 50 years since the Human War, he had risen from a junior officer to admiral of the Coalition's Third Fleet. He had never faced humans in battle, but the stories from his mentors still haunted him. Too unpredictable, too adaptive, too dangerous. Inside the Vengeance, Reed and his crew had been moved to a secure room. It wasn't a cell exactly. It had comfortable chairs and food synthesizers, but the doors were locked tight. "This is your fault," Call muttered, pacing the room. "You just had to board the ship. You couldn't follow protocol." Reed didn't argue. He was watching the screen on the wall where Atlas showed them what was happening elsewhere on the ship. The revival chamber glowed with soft light. Inside a clear pod, a human figure was becoming more visible as frost melted away from the glass. Medical systems worked automatically, preparing for the awakening. "Why show us this?" Reed asked when Atlas's hologram appeared in their room. "Educational purposes," the eye replied. "Few Coalition species have seen a living human. Most records were destroyed after the war." Tyla moved closer to the screen, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "How long has this human been in cryosleep?" Commander Wilson entered cryostasis 49 years, 3 months, and 17 days ago, shortly after the Battle of New Terra. Reed's antennae stiffened in shock. But that was the final battle of the war, when the last human fleet was destroyed. Atlas seemed to smile. Was it? On the screen, the cryopod's cover slid open. Mist rolled out as a human sat up slowly. It was taller than any Vex, with pale skin and short dark hair. The human, Wilson, took a deep breath and coughed. "Status, Atlas." The voice was rough from years of disuse, but strong. "Welcome back, Commander Wilson. Revival successful. All ship systems operational at 87%. We have guests." Wilson looked directly at the camera, and Reed felt the human's eyes burning through the screen at him. "Bring me the senior officer." 20 minutes later, Reed stood in a large room as Wilson entered. The human wore a black uniform with silver markings on the shoulders. Despite just waking from a 49-year sleep, Wilson moved with confidence. The human was nearly twice Reed's height. "Captain Reed of the Coalition vessel Swift Hunter," Atlas introduced him. Wilson studied Reed for a long moment. "You're Vex. Your people joined the Coalition late in the war." "Yes," Reed answered, surprised. "How did you know?" "I make it my business to know my enemies." Wilson walked to a table where a steaming cup waited. "Atlas says you boarded my ship looking for—" "What exactly?" "Salvage. Weapons." Reed stood as tall as he could. "The war is long over, human. Your kind lost. This ship is just floating space junk now." Wilson took a sip from the cup and smiled. "Is that what they told you?" The human pressed a button on the table, and a large screen lit up on the wall. It showed space outside the Vengeance. Reed's ship, the Swift Hunter, was secured to the massive warship like a tiny parasite. "Your crew is unharmed," Wilson said. "They're contained in your ship's mess hall." "What do you want?" Reed asked. "Information. For starters, what year is it?" When Reed told him, Wilson nodded slowly. "Almost 5 decades, longer than planned, but it will do." The human touched another control, and the screen changed to show star maps and Coalition territories. "While I slept, Atlas has been gathering data, passive scans, intercepted communications, analysis of ship movements. But there are gaps. You will fill them." Reed's antennae twitched nervously. "And why would I help you?" "Because I'm taking this ship to Haven. And you're coming with me. Haven. Reed had never heard the name. What is that? Wilson's face hardened. The place your coalition failed to find. The place where humanity lives on. While Wilson questioned Reed, Atlas continued bringing the Vengeance's systems online. Deep in the ship's core, massive engines began to hum. Weapon systems charge. Shield generators spun up to full power. In the engine room, Engineer Mick had been separated from the others to help Atlas optimize the power systems. Despite himself, he was impressed. These engines shouldn't be possible, he muttered as he studied the schematics Atlas showed him. The power output is beyond anything in the Coalition. Human innovation, Atlas replied. We were always good at breaking the rules of what's possible. Mick looked up at a sound. One of his fellow Vex, Security Officer Dren, was sneaking into the engine room. Dren, how did you get here? Mick whispered. I slipped away when they moved us. Listen, we need to disable this ship before it's fully operational. Mick hesitated. I'm not sure we can, or should. This technology, it's amazing. The Coalition could learn from it. Dren's antennae flattened against his head. That human is planning something. We need to stop it. Before Mick could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. What's happening? Mick asked. Atlas's voice came from everywhere. Coalition vessels approaching. Battle stations. On the bridge, Wilson sat in the captain's chair with Reed standing nearby. The screen showed 3 Coalition warships moving toward them. They're hailing us, Atlas reported. Ignore it, Wilson ordered. Shields at maximum. Bring main engines to full power. Reed felt fear crawl up his spine. Those are Dreadnought-class destroyers. The most powerful ships in the Coalition fleet. You can't fight them. Wilson smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Who said anything about fighting? Atlas, prepare for jump. Jump, Reed asked. You can't jump this close to a star. Human ships can, Wilson said simply. Outside, the Coalition vessels fired warning shots. Energy blasts flashed against the Vengeance's shields, doing no damage. Return fire, Atlas asked. Wilson considered for a moment. No, just a message. Let them know who they're dealing with. A beam of light, thin as a needle, shot from the Vengeance. It passed through the lead Coalition ship's shields like they weren't there and carved the human symbol for Vengeance into its hull. Not deep enough to cause serious damage, but unmistakable. Jump now, Wilson ordered. Space bent around the massive warship. Stars blurred. The Vengeance vanished in a flash of light, leaving the Coalition ships behind. The last human warship had returned to the stars, and the hunt had begun. Admiral Grant stared at the damage report in disbelief. His lead ship, the Invincible, had been marked like an animal tagged by a hunter. The human symbol carved into its hull wasn't deep enough to cause real damage, but the message was clear. We could have destroyed you, but chose not to. How did they jump so close to the star? His science officer asked, voice shaking. It should have torn their ship apart. Grant knew the answer, but didn't say it aloud. Human technology. Always one step ahead, even 50 years later. He opened a secure channel to Coalition High Command. This is Admiral Grant. The human warship Vengeance is active. I repeat, a human warship is active. Request immediate reinforcements and full war protocols. The response was immediate. Understood. All available fleets are being mobilized. Find that ship, Admiral. Find it and destroy it. Grant looked at the star chart where analysts had projected the Vengeance's possible jump destinations, a vast section of space with dozens of star systems. I will find you, human, he whispered. The Vengeance dropped out of its jump deep in an asteroid field. The massive ship moved with surprising grace between the floating rocks, hiding its signature among the mineral-rich asteroids. On the bridge, Commander Wilson studied the star charts while Reed watched nervously. You can't possibly reach Haven, Reed said. The Coalition controls all space between here and the outer rim. Every major route is guarded. Wilson pointed to the map. Then we won't use major routes. The path you're showing crosses the burning wastes. Reed protested. No ship has ever survived that radiation field. Wilson smiled. No coalition ship, you mean? Reed realized the human was enjoying this, being underestimated, doing the impossible. It made him understand why the coalition had feared humans so much. Atlas's hologram appeared. Commander, I've detected a problem in engine section 4. Engineer Mick reports sabotage. Wilson's smile vanished. Show me. The screen changed to show the engine room where Mick was frantically working on a damaged console. Nearby lay Officer Dren, unconscious. What happened? Wilson demanded. Your crew member attempted to overload our secondary coolant system, Atlas explained. Engineer Mick stopped him. The damage is minimal but will slow our jump capabilities. Wilson turned to Reed. Your people. Reed's antennae drooped. I didn't order this. No, Wilson agreed after studying Reed's face. You wouldn't sacrifice your ship and crew so foolishly. Take me to the engine room. When they arrived, Mick was still working on repairs. Dren had been secured to a wall panel with restraints. He said we couldn't let the ship reach haven. Mick explained nervously. That humans would destroy the coalition if they returned. Wilson knelt beside the damage. You stopped him. Why? Mick's 3 fingers twisted together anxiously. This technology, it's amazing. We could learn from it. Destroying it would be wrong. Wilson studied the small alien engineer. Curiosity. The one trait humans share with most intelligent species. He stood up. Thank you for protecting my ship. You'll help with repairs. What about him? Reed asked, nodding toward the unconscious Dren. Confined to quarters under guard, Wilson ordered. I don't kill prisoners, Captain Reed. Another thing your coalition got wrong about us. As they worked on repairs, Wilson explained more about the war. How the coalition had feared human innovation and adaptability. How they had struck first, not to conquer but to exterminate. We were decades behind your technology when we met, Wilson said as he helped Mick rewire a panel. But we learned too quickly. Within 10 years, we had caught up. In 20, we were pulling ahead in some areas. So the coalition attacked, Reed said quietly. Wilson nodded. Preemptive genocide. Billions dead in the first strikes. We never saw it coming. Mick looked up from his work. But some survived. At Haven, yes. Our best minds, our most advanced research. We scattered them while the rest of us fought a losing war. Wilson's eyes grew distant. The Vengeance was our last major warship, a decoy and a messenger in one. The ship shuddered suddenly. Alarms blared. Atlas, report, Wilson commanded. Coalition scout vessels detected. They've launched missiles. The Vengeance erupted from the asteroid field, its massive engines glowing bright. 5 small coalition ships pursued, firing continuously. On the bridge, Wilson took command. Evasive pattern delta. Minimal shields. Let them think they're hurting us. Reed watched in confusion. Why not use full shields? Because I want them to call for backup, Wilson explained. I want them to think we're damaged. The Vengeance shuddered again as a missile struck its rear section. Now power to forward shields. Bring us around, Wilson ordered. Show them our teeth. The massive human warship swung around with impossible speed for its size. Its front section glowed as weapon ports opened. Targeting their engines only, Atlas reported. Ready to fire. Execute, Wilson said calmly. Beams of energy lanced out, striking each coalition ship precisely where their engines connected to their hulls. The scouts drifted, powerless but intact. They've sent a distress signal, Atlas reported. Large coalition force responding. Wilson smiled. Good. Set course for the burning wastes, full speed. Reed's antennae stood straight up in alarm. You're insane. You're heading right for the largest coalition fleet station. Exactly where they won't expect us to go, Wilson replied. The best way past a blockade is through it. 6 hours later, the Vengeance approached the outer edge of the Coalition's defensive line. Ahead lay the burning wastes, a massive radiation field created by 3 colliding neutron stars centuries ago. On the bridge, the screen showed dozens of Coalition warships moving to intercept. "Their flagship is hailing us," Atlas reported. "Put it through," Wilson ordered. Admiral Grant's scaled face appeared on screen. "Human vessel. This is Admiral Grant of the Coalition Third Fleet. Your situation is hopeless. Surrender now." Wilson leaned forward. "This is Commander Wilson of the Earth ship Vengeance. We will not surrender." "You are outnumbered 30-1, Grant said. "No ship can outrun this blockade." "We don't need to outrun your blockade," Wilson replied. "We just need to go through it." He gestured to cut the communication. "Atlas, activate the shield bubble. All power to forward sections." The Vengeance's front began to glow bright blue. The energy spread backward, covering the entire ship in a bubble of light. "What is that?" Reed asked, eyes wide. "Radiation shield," Wilson explained. "Designed specifically for the burning wastes." Reed understood suddenly. "You're going to fly straight through the radiation field. No Coalition ship has ever." "We're not a Coalition ship," Wilson said as the Vengeance accelerated toward the deadly barrier between stars. "Too big, too fast, too deadly. Remember?" Behind them, the Coalition fleet scrambled to pursue, but none dared follow where the human warship was heading. The Vengeance plunged into the swirling radiation of the burning wastes, its shields glowing bright against the deadly energies that had claimed thousands of ships before it. The gauntlet had begun. The burning wastes lived up to their name. Outside the Vengeance's shields, space itself seemed to burn with angry red and purple energies. Radiation levels were high enough to kill any unprotected living thing in seconds. On the bridge, Reed watched in amazement as the massive human ship pushed deeper into the deadly zone. The shields glowed bright blue, holding back the lethal radiation. "How much farther?" he asked. Wilson studied the navigation display. "Another 8 hours at current speed. The wastes are over 3 light years across." "No Coalition ship has ever mapped this region," Reed said. "How do you know where to go?" "We mapped it," Wilson replied. 50 years ago, before the war ended. The Vengeance isn't the first human ship to pass through here." Reed's antennae twitched in surprise. "You mean Haven is on the other side, hidden where your people would never look?" The ship suddenly rocked violently. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. "Atlas, report," Wilson commanded. "Radiation surge," the AI responded. "Shield strength at 82% and falling. We also have a new problem." The main screen changed to show 5 Coalition ships entering the waste behind them. Unlike the rest of the fleet, these vessels had special shields that glowed green against the radiation. "Impossible," Reed whispered. "Coalition ships can't survive the wastes." "It seems Admiral Grant has some special ships we didn't know about," Wilson said grimly. "Atlas, increase power to rear shields. Prepare countermeasures." The screen showed the pursuing ships gaining on them. Their weapons were charging. "They're not trying to capture us anymore," Wilson noted. "They're here to destroy us at any cost." "Why?" Mick asked. The engineer had proven useful enough to earn a place on the bridge. "Why risk those ships just to stop one vessel?" Wilson turned to Reed. "Captain, care to explain why the Coalition is so afraid of us reaching Haven?" Reed's 3-fingered hands tightened on the console. "I don't know. I'm just a patrol captain." "But you've heard rumors," Wilson pressed, "about why the war really started." Reed hesitated, then nodded slowly. "There were stories about human technology, things that seemed impossible." "Like what?" "Mind transfer, artificial intelligence that could think like living beings, weapons that could destroy stars." Reed's voice dropped. "Some said humans were becoming something more than organic." Wilson smiled grimly. and that scared the Coalition to death. Another blast rocked the ship. The pursuing vessels were firing now, their weapons surprisingly effective even through the radiation. Shield strength at 64%, Atlas reported. They're using focused antimatter charges. Our shields weren't designed for this type of weapon. Wilson's face hardened. Time for Plan B. Reduce power to all non-essential systems. Transfer energy to the core. Commander, Atlas said, activating the core this early will reveal. I know what it will reveal. Wilson cut in. Do it anyway. Throughout the massive ship, lights dimmed. Systems shut down. The hum of the engines quieted. What's happening? Reed asked. You're about to learn why this ship is called Too Big, Wilson answered. At the center of the Vengeance, deep within its armored hull, something began to awaken. A different kind of power, unlike the engines or weapon systems. It pulsed like a heartbeat, growing stronger with each beat. On the bridge, a new hologram appeared, a three-dimensional map of the ship. At its center, a bright light grew. The Vengeance was never just a warship, Wilson explained as the pursuing Coalition vessels closed in. It's a carrier. The light at the center of the hologram expanded, revealing a smaller vessel contained within the massive hull of the Vengeance. A ship within a ship, Reed whispered in awe. Not just any ship, Wilson said. The fastest, most advanced vessel humans ever built. The real mission of the Vengeance wasn't to fight. It was to deliver this ship to Haven. Another blast hit them, harder than before. The lights flickered. Shield strength at 41%, Atlas reported. Hull breach on Deck 7. Start the separation sequence, Wilson ordered, and show our friends outside what we can really do. The massive ship suddenly accelerated, its remaining power channeled into one final burst of speed. The Coalition vessels struggled to keep up. All hands, prepare for combat maneuvers, Wilson announced shipwide. Reed, you and Mick are coming with me. The rest of your crew will remain on the Vengeance. Where are we going? Reed asked. To Haven, Wilson answered simply. Atlas will command the Vengeance from here. Wilson led Reed and Mick through corridors that were now dark except for emergency lighting. They reached a sealed door that opened to reveal an elevator. This will take us to the core, Wilson explained as they entered. The elevator descended rapidly. When the doors opened, Reed gasped. Before them sat a sleek vessel, much smaller than the Vengeance but still impressive. Its hull was midnight black, with no visible weapons ports or engine exhausts. It looked like a predator made of metal and shadow. This is the Shadow Dart, Wilson said with pride. The real reason the Vengeance was built. It's beautiful, Mick whispered, his engineer's mind trying to understand the technology before him. A new hologram of Atlas appeared beside them. The Coalition vessels are preparing to fire their main weapons. Estimated survival chance for the Vengeance is 37%. Begin the separation, Wilson ordered. And Atlas, it's been an honor. The AI nodded. The honor has been mine, Commander. The Vengeance will not fall easily. Wilson led Reed and Mick aboard the Shadow Dart. Inside, the technology was beyond anything Reed had ever seen. No visible controls, just smooth surfaces that lit up as Wilson approached. What are you doing? Reed asked as Wilson placed his hand on a glowing panel. Connecting, Wilson replied, his eyes unfocused. The Shadow Dart doesn't have conventional controls. It links directly to the pilot's mind. Above them, the Vengeance shuddered as it began to open. Massive armored plates shifted, creating a path for the smaller vessel to launch. Atlas, Wilson said through the mental link, execute final protocol. Throughout the Vengeance, systems began to overload. Its weapons powered up, targeting the pursuing Coalition ships. Its engines pushed to maximum. The Shadow Dart rose from its cradle within the dying warship. Ready for launch, Wilson said quietly. Vengeance, thank you for your service. The Shadow Dart shot forward, so fast that Reed felt pressed back into his seat, despite the inertial dampeners. Behind them, the Vengeance turned to face its attackers. As they sped away, Reed saw the massive human warship glow brighter and brighter, pouring all its remaining power into one final act of defiance. The Vengeance exploded in a flash of light bright enough to outshine the burning wastes themselves. The blast caught 3 of the Coalition ships, destroying them instantly. The remaining 2 were damaged but survived. Atlas, Reed whispered, surprised to find himself mourning an artificial intelligence. He completed his mission, Wilson said as the Shadow Dart accelerated to impossible speed. Just as we will complete ours. Ahead of them, through the last wisps of the burning wastes, a new path opened. The path to Haven. The path to the truth. The Shadow Dart slipped through space like a ghost. No engine flare, no radiation signature, nothing that sensors could detect. It moved in silence, faster than any ship Reed had ever seen. How is this possible? The Vex captain asked, watching stars blur past on the viewing screen. We're moving faster than light, but there's no jump distortion. Wilson, still connected to the ship through the mental link, smiled slightly. It's not faster than light travel as you understand it. The Shadow Dart doesn't push through space. It slides between the layers of reality. Mick studied the subtle glow of the hull. Dimensional shifting. That's only theoretical. For the Coalition, maybe, Wilson replied. For us, it's been practical technology for decades. Reed felt a chill. If humans had this level of technology 50 years ago, what would they have now? The Coalition's fears suddenly seemed more reasonable. How much farther to Haven? He asked. We're already here, Wilson said. The view screen showed empty space. No planets, no stations, nothing but distant stars, and a faint nebula. Wilson's mind sent a command to the ship, and suddenly the space before them shimmered. Like a curtain being pulled aside, the emptiness gave way to reveal a massive structure. It wasn't a planet, or a space station as Reed understood them. It was something else entirely, a construct the size of a small moon, but with a complex geometric design that seemed to fold in on itself impossibly. Optical camouflage. Mick asked in amazement. Something more complex, Wilson answered. Haven exists partially in another dimension. That's why the Coalition never found it. The Shadow Dart approached the massive structure. As they drew closer, Reed could see movement, ships coming and going, sections of the structure rotating and shifting to create new configurations. How many humans are there? Reed asked quietly. About 200 million now, Wilson replied. We started with less than 1 million survivors. A communication signal pulsed through the ship. Wilson accepted it with a thought. A human face appeared on the screen, older than Wilson, with gray hair and deep lines around the eyes. Commander Wilson, welcome home. I see you've brought guests. Director Bell, Wilson greeted the man. The Vengeance completed its mission, but at the cost of the ship and Atlas. These 2 helped us reach Haven. Director Bell studied Reed and Mick through the screen. Coalition species. Are they prisoners? Allies, Wilson corrected. They deserve to know the truth. The whole truth. Bell sighed. Very well. Bring them to Central Hub when you dock. The Council will want to meet them. The Shadow Dart docked inside a vast hangar. As they exited the ship, Reed and Mick were overwhelmed by the sight of humans everywhere, walking, working, living in what appeared to be a thriving society. But it wasn't just the number of humans that shocked Reed. It was what they were doing. Some humans worked alongside machines that moved like living things. Others wore devices that connected to their bodies, enhancing them in visible ways. In one section, Reed saw humans communicating without speaking, similar to how Wilson controlled the Shadow Dart. What is all this? Reed asked, trying to understand what he was seeing. Human innovation, Wilson answered, unhindered by fear or restriction. They were escorted to a large circular room where 7 humans sat at a round table. Director Bell stood as they entered. Welcome to Haven, he greeted them formally. You are the first coalition species to see our home in 50 years. Why show us now? Reed asked. Because it's time, a woman at the table answered. Time for the truth to be known. Wilson guided them to seats at the table. When the coalition attacked Earth, they claimed it was because humans were aggressive, unpredictable. That we couldn't be trusted with advanced technology. That's what our history teaches, Reed acknowledged. The real reason was fear, Director Bell said. Not of what we had done, but of what we were becoming. The center of the table lit up, displaying a hologram of a human brain. As they watched, parts of it began to glow and change. Human evolution was accelerating. The woman explained. Our technology was advancing faster than any species in coalition history. But more importantly, we were changing ourselves. The hologram shifted to show humans with neural implants, enhanced bodies, minds connected to machines. We were transcending our biological limitations, Wilson said, becoming something new. The coalition saw this and panicked. They struck first, trying to wipe us out before we could complete the transition. Mick leaned forward, fascinated. But you survived. Here. Yes, Bell nodded. Haven was designed as both refuge and laboratory. Here, we continued our evolution without interference. And now? Reed asked, suddenly afraid of the answer. Now we're ready to return to the galaxy, Wilson said simply. On cue, the wall of the chamber became transparent, revealing the space beyond Haven. Reed gasped. Hundreds of ships were assembling, vessels that made the Vengeance look primitive by comparison. Some were massive, others small and sleek like the Shadow Dart. All carried the unmistakable mark of human design, but far more advanced. This is an invasion fleet, Reed said, his voice shaking. No, Wilson corrected. This is an introduction. We're not returning to conquer or for revenge. We're returning to share. Share, Mick asked. Bell nodded. All that we've learned, all that we've become, the advancements that could benefit all species. The coalition will never accept this, Reed said. They'll see it as a threat. Some will, Wilson agreed. Admiral Grant is probably already preparing for war, even with just the little he's seen of our technology. But others will listen. That's why you're here, Bell told Reed and Mick. To witness the truth and carry it back. To be the first bridge between humanity and the coalition. Reed looked at the assembly of ships again. There were enough to conquer the entire coalition if humans wished. But something in Wilson's eyes, in all the humans he'd seen here, told him that wasn't their plan. What happens now? Reed asked. Wilson stood and looked out at the fleet. Now we send a message. The same message the Vengeance was designed to deliver. Humanity has returned. Not as conquerors, but as guides to a future with possibilities beyond what any of us can imagine alone. Outside, the first ships began to move, their strange drives glowing with energy from dimensions the Coalition had never explored. The Coalition destroy our world, Wilson said quietly, but they couldn't destroy our spirit. They couldn't stop human innovation. Too big to be contained, too fast to be caught, too deadly to be challenged. He turned to Reed with a slight smile, but also too compassionate to seek revenge. That's the part your leaders never understood about us. As Reed watched the human fleet begin its journey, he understood finally why the Coalition had feared humans so much, not because of what they might do to the galaxy, but because of how they would change it forever. The last human warship had completed its mission,